my poem about Michael Pryse, Luke Philippovich, grade 1. Rice is nice with mice on ice, especially enjoyed by Eastern Synod Bishop Michael Pryse. And this is my poem about Ron Cutler. This bishop is a suffragan, I promise I won't lie. He's here for Nova Scotia and also PEI. His name is Ron Cutler, I'm telling you the truth. Also, I have some good news. I just lost my first tooth.
Anybody beating down the doors to get into your churches? No. Can you imagine the situation where there are so many people trying to bash their way into the church that nobody can get in the doors, and so you guys have to cut a hole in the top of the church to let people in? That's our theme scripture today. I heard a story about a guy who actually wanted to get into church. We don't meet a lot of those guys anymore. He wanted to go to church, and he actually showed up. He's one of those guys, some of you met him last night when you were run all around town. So, you know, he looked a little rough, might have been walking a little slowly, staggering. How many of you guys met that guy? There was a bunch of you, because you told me about him. You met him all over the street. And he decided to show up at St. Mildred's Church on Sunday. And he went in there, and he went into the service, and he did this, and he kind of liked it, and afterwards he was going out, and he'd shake hands with the pastor, he'd shake hands with the priest. And now this priest, this pastor, like, wasn't a real fine individual, like our Bishop Ron. You know, he's one of these kind of snooty guys, and, you know, he eyed this guy upside, one down the other, and I'm not sure this guy belongs in our church. And the fellow said, you know, I really liked it here at church today, and I want to try and figure out how I can be a part of St. Mildred's. And the pastor said, well, you know, church membership, that's kind of a big thing. It's really, really important. Not to be taken lightly. I think you ought to go home and pray about this. He gave him the brush off. He 86'd him. And the guy left. But the very next day, the priest is working in his office, sitting there, pastor's tapping away, knocking the door, opens the door, there's the guy. And he said, Pastor, he said, I did exactly what you said last night. I went home and I got down on my knees and I prayed and I implored the Lord Almighty and I prayed to him and I said, how is it that I can get into St. Mildred's Church? And the Lord answered me. The Lord said to me, I don't know why you bother asking me. I've been trying to get into that place myself for the last 15 years. Even God sometimes gets a 404 message in our churches, and people get 404 messages all the time. Close your eyes. We're going to do a little test here. Closing your eyes helps you to tell the truth. How many of you feel, and if you do feel this way, I want you to wave your hand, okay? Your eyes aren't shut. Feel really welcome in your churches. Okay, that's good. That's about half of you. Eyes still shut. How many of your friends would feel really welcome in your churches? Wave. Down to about a third. How many of the people that you met last night that were not part of this whole thing do you suspect would feel really welcome in our churches? Eyes shut. Hands waving. Okay, down to about 20%. Okay, good. So you kind of get it. Church isn't an easy place to get into. And sometimes what we got to do is we've got to cut holes in roofs. We got to figure out multiple points of access because it's not really easy for people to come and do that walk on Sunday morning through that one little port that we've got that most people have a place for. I'm going to tell you about one church. How many people here from Kitchener-Waterloo? Let's hear it. Good God, there's a bunch of you. St. Mark's, Kitchener-Waterloo?
Woo!
Okay, a few of you. St. Mark's Lutheran Church, downtown, inner city, going the way of inner city churches. A lot of old people Sunday morning, kind of ho-hum, not a lot of energy, but they're inner city. And they get a vision. We actually live in a community here. There's all sorts of people around us. How do we cut a hole in the roof? And so what they did is they decided they're going to have a community dinner. So every Wednesday night, the doors of the church are all wide open. Anybody can come in. So those guys that you met in the park last night that looked a little rough and everything, the church gets full of them on Wednesday nights. They cut a hole in the roof. They tried to figure out a way, and that's been going on for 8 years. They eat together, they pray together. It is church, it is real, it is good, it is holy. They're right next door to a high school. Right next door. Do all of you in your high school, is there a place where the butt people hang out? A butt stop? The church was the butt stop. What do you think the church people thought about that? Oh, really? You think they thought it was awesome? What do you think the church people thought about that? All these kids hanging out their doors, smoking all the time, standing at the back door. They wanted to put up a fence. They went to the principal. They complained. They whined. The leaders of the community ministry group said, no, this is a deal. These kids actually come onto our property. The pastor started going out and talking to the kids at the bus stop. He'd go out, he knew when the breaks were, got to know all the kids, all the messes and everything. He said, you know, could you guys kind of clean this up? And that would be a helpful thing for you. We're happy for you to come here. End of the deal, they negotiated the whole thing. There's a real nice bus stop on the church property, place where all the kids come. They feel very welcome. It led to a community breakfast. There are 200 kids from the high school that come and have breakfast at our church every day of the week. Community garden happened out of that. Joint mission projects. Those people cut a hole in the roof and figured out a way. We need you guys to help us cut holes in roofs. We're not so good at it. In your churches, how can you open the doors? How can you find more ways for more people to get into the place and stop those 404 messages that too many people get today? Bishop Ron?